Did you know? Europe is in the midst of an epic spectacle of waste. Ms. Henna Virkkunen of the European Commission is leading her team with the mission to rip out every Huawei device across the entire continent. Yes, you heard that right, the entire continent. If you don't comply, there's a whole arsenal of fines and penalties waiting. Sounds grand and imposing, doesn't it? But what if I told you the UK's top cybersecurity agency had already completed a thorough inspection of Huawei equipment in 2019 and found no backdoors whatsoever? Doesn't that make this whole operation feel a bit absurd? Let's look at the numbers. Just removing Huawei gear in the UK alone comes with an official budget of $2 billion and is scheduled to finish by 2027. But as everyone knows, government projects are notorious for running over budget. The real cost is likely to hit $4 to $5 billion, all to remove equipment that's still working perfectly fine. Now, zoom out to the whole of Europe. The EU has 27 member states, a landmass over 40 times the size of the UK, and a population more than 6 times larger. If we use Britain's actual spend of $4 to $5 billion as a benchmark, even a conservative estimate puts the EU's total demolition cost at $150 to $200 billion. That's a lowball, because costs will only keep rising. Labor shortages, inflation, and growing project complexity will drive the bill ever higher. And what's most ironic? This staggering sum is being spent to scrap perfectly functional hardware. These devices are installed underground, connected to homes all over, running smoothly. Now they're to be dug out and thrown away, replaced by something else, burning up taxpayers' money in the process. Here's where the story gets interesting. Not every European country is dancing to America's tune. Hungary's Prime Minister Orbán has openly supported using Huawei equipment, calling it an economically rational choice. Serbia is one of Huawei's biggest European partners, with vast portions of its 5G network powered by Huawei gear. Globally, countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Kenya, South Africa, Brazil, and Chile are all pushing ahead with Huawei equipment for their communications infrastructure. Why the difference? The answer is simple. These countries care about performance, price, and real-world needs, not about taking sides in political games. Huawei's hardware performs better, is more efficient, and costs less. That's how the market works. Meanwhile, in countries following the ban, it's taxpayers who foot the bill for political correctness. So, back to the core of the story. If people claim Huawei equipment has spy software or backdoors, why not just put it to the test? Take random samples, tear down a unit here, do a reverse engineering there, track down this mythical backdoor. If it's found, then ban it with solid evidence. If it's not, keep using it, saving countless money, time, and manpower. Sounds reasonable, right? But here's the twist. The Europeans have already done just that. In 2019, the UK established the Huawei Cybersecurity Evaluation Centre, whose oversight board submitted a detailed report to the UK's National Security Advisor. This substantial report answers the critical question everyone cares about. Does Huawei engage in espionage, and are there hidden backdoors? The answer: the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre found only fundamental engineering defects and cybersecurity practice issues. Problems that could be exploited by hackers, but crucially, were not the result of interference by the Chinese government. In plain English, no backdoor found. Some people might say, hold on, didn't they find vulnerabilities? Well, yes, every piece of code has vulnerabilities. That's just how software engineering works. Unless you're using a phone so old it won't even turn on, you get system updates every month, right? These updates are full of security patches and fixes. There's no such thing as perfect software. All code has flaws, and all companies fix them as they go. The Chronicle also reported on this, quoting cybersecurity expert Rob Pritchard. The creation of the Huawei Cybersecurity Evaluation Centre was fundamentally about worrying that the Chinese government would threaten the UK's critical infrastructure. Now, yes, some vulnerabilities have been found, which is fine. They can be reported to Huawei for patching. The bigger issue is other vendors haven't undergone this level of scrutiny. There's no evidence their products are any safer. Think about that. First, there's no backdoor. Second, there are some crummy coding practices and vulnerabilities, but every company has them. Third, nobody else has been inspected this thoroughly. My Android phone just got its November security update, packed with critical patches. Google even offers bounties, up to $100,000 if you spot a vulnerability in their system. Finding vulnerabilities isn't inherently bad. The real question is whether other companies are subject to the same level of scrutiny. The UK government set up a special center just for Huawei. Team assembled. Impressive name, dedicated budget, massive report. The conclusion: no substantial issues found. So, will they do the same for Nokia, Ericsson, or Samsung? Of course not. That's the reality. The one company that's been examined inside and out has no backdoor, but gets banned. All the unexamined ones, well, we have no idea, but they're cleared for use. What a logic. There's another intriguing detail corroborated by documented events. In May 2019, the UK's Government Communications Headquarters, responsible for Huawei's evaluation, completed a technical assessment and concluded Huawei posed no threat to national security. Britain was set to keep working with Huawei. But then, the Trump administration sent a delegation led by then Deputy National Security Advisor Matthew Pottinger to London. In a cabinet office meeting, they spent 5 hours berating British officials. This isn't a rumor. It's documented in the 2022 book The Secret History of the Five Eyes by Richard Kerbaj, who interviewed British intelligence officers present at the meeting. One UK officer recalled, "Pottinger just ranted, showed no interest in the British analysis. His message was, 'We don't want you to do this. You have no idea how evil China is.'" 5 hours of ranting, following a prepared script, angry but oddly lacking in real threats. Sir Kim Darroch, the UK's national security advisor, later told journalists the US delegation had no persuasive technical arguments to overturn GCHQ's decision, that the American reasons were political, not technical. The former head of the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre, Ciaran Martin, was also there. He said, "We're happy to work with the US on the China challenge, but we think Huawei's limited involvement in the UK's 5G isn't the most important part of the big strategic picture. The US is fixated on this for reasons we can't understand." It went further. The CIA launched so-called black ops against the UK, contacting intelligence agencies in France, Germany, Italy, and Norway to accuse Britain of misjudgment on Huawei, trying to isolate the UK and undermine its reputation in Europe. British intelligence officers called it black ops against allies. Meanwhile, then Secretary of State Mike Pompeo warned Britain in February 2019, using Huawei equipment would endanger US national security, even threatening to expel the UK from the Five Eyes intelligence sharing alliance. Former Vice President Pence, Pompeo, and other senior officials made repeated trips to Europe, warning allies the US would withhold intelligence if they didn't ban Huawei. Britain eventually caved. In July 2020, Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced a Huawei ban, with all equipment to be removed by 2027. The irony? Johnson originally supported Ciaran Martin's recommendations on Huawei security. But after the US banned chip sales to Huawei, the UK had no choice. Now, the truth is laid bare. One sharp comment online put it best. The real problem is the US can no longer spy on Britain and Europe through backdoors. Another said, strictly speaking, the real reason for banning Huawei is there isn't a backdoor. More precisely, the US government can't access a Huawei backdoor, so its own national security is threatened. Pause and think about that. That's an interesting twist. Some point out that Samsung phones have been exposed for having Israeli backdoors, and all Five Eyes telecom equipment comes with its own backdoors. Just get a court order, and they'll start listening in. And then there's a joke. If Huawei truly had a backdoor, would Xi Jinping be giving Maduro a Huawei phone? Apple is worth $4 trillion and still pushes out security patches every month. Google pays people to find vulnerabilities. All software is attackable. That's common knowledge. Even a simple Hello World program could have vulnerabilities in the underlying environment. The point isn't whether vulnerabilities exist, they always do. What matters is deliberate backdoors or evidence of espionage. The UK's top cybersecurity agency checked. None found. But the EU is shutting it all down anyway. European taxpayers will fork out $200 billion to rip out perfectly serviceable equipment and replace it with alternatives. Devices which might very well have the special capabilities Big Brother needs. And these alternatives are no guarantee of better quality or fewer vulnerabilities. So, that's the story. A company proven to have no backdoor gets banned on national security grounds, while those never subject to the same scrutiny get a free pass because we trust them. European taxpayers may become the first in human history to pay $200 billion to downgrade their own infrastructure, only to end up with something costlier, likely with worse performance, and potentially loaded with the very kind of backdoor they were supposedly trying to avoid. Some call this a good West, bad China political delusion. To me, it looks a lot more like a mafia business model with suits and a legal document. So make your own judgment.